BAHASHAM, YAHAWASHI, BAHASHAM, RAWCHAA, QADASH. The honors to GMS who told me this truth. Isaiah 50:20. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. So, story from Sky News. Unvanesced patients at greater risk of expiring for at least 18 months after infection. Because the research took place in 2020, it only takes into account people who had not been vanesced at the time they were infected with 19. But because of the sheer number of people who fell ill in the first wave, the study authors say it can still help evaluate future outbreaks. So, unboosted, unvanesced patients retain a greater risk of expiring and cardiovascular disease for at least 18 months after infection, new research suggests. The finding come following a study of more than 160,000 people during the first year of the pandemic, before any boosters were available. Those who caught the disease between March and November 2020 were found to be up to 81 times more likely to expire within the first 3 weeks of infection, and they remained up to 5 times more likely to expire than uninfected people a year and a half later. So patients also had a higher risk of developing cardiovascular disease, again up to 18 months after infection, which researchers say forms part of long 19. This included coronary heart disease, heart failure, and deep vein thrombosis. Researchers say their findings indicate that 19 patients should be monitored for at least a year after recovery. So who took part in this study? More than 7,519 patients were identified for the study through UK Biobank, a large biomedical database containing huge amounts of health data on 500,000 patients across the country. Each patient was matched with up to 10 people who did not catch 19 during the first 18 months of the outbreak, and with a historical cohort from back in 2018. Researchers chose uninfected people who had similar profiles to those who caught 19, with an average age across all three groups of 66 and nearly equal numbers of men and women. So lead study author Professor Ian Wong explained the historical control cohort was included to rule out the effects of routine healthcare services being reduced or cancelled during the pandemic, which led to worsening health and increased mortality even in uninfected people. So it says medical records were monitored for outcomes including heart failure and heart attack and stroke, death from cardiovascular disease, and all-cause death. People who had experienced heart disease before were excluded from the analysis. Researchers then compared the number of infected people who developed a condition or who expired with how many uninfected people who did. 19 patients were found to be approximately 4 times more likely to develop a major cardiovascular disease within 3 weeks of infection, and 40% more likely within the subsequent 18 months. Those who had severe 19 were even more likely to develop a condition or die in the same time frame. The findings have been published. So 19's huge impact on risk of heart disease. So there you have it. Let's say an unV'd patients at greater risk of expiring for at least 18 months after infection. Shalom.